Okay, so we're going to learn the Maimer Vayihyu Chayei Sarah Papshin on aleph. Main akdama to the Maimer, we could ask what's the connection between Me'ah Shana ve'Esrim Shana ve'Sheva Shanim, Me'ah Brachas, and your workday. Yeah. So this Maimer is the Rebbe takes a certain idea of how even a regular workday is no different than any other time when you're serving the Eibishter. The Rebbe takes this idea the furthest that I've seen. Maybe the Rebbe takes a little further in the Sikh of Simchas Torah and Beis. The Rebbe takes this idea of how much your regular workday could be connected with the Eibishter and with serving the Eibishter. The Rebbe takes it further in this Maimer more than I've seen in nearly everywhere else. So let's see. It's a very interesting Maimer. Let's start. The beginning of the Maimer is very technical until Hey. And then from Hey on, it starts getting a little more inyandik. So let's see if we'll either do until Hey or maybe we'll do Hey also. So it says in the Pasuk in next week's Parsha, Vayihyu Chayei Sarah Me'ah Shana ve'Esrim Shana ve'Sheva Shanim Shnei Chayei Sarah, and the years of Sarah were 100 years and 20 years and 7 years. These were the years of Sarah. V'yaduim hadiyukim midrash Rabbeinu Nisienu hachal midrash Rabbeinu Azaka mitzvah Sagoy Subin midrash Rabbeinu Shalach Lezer. Kam midrash Yadmu Shabbos Maseden Vaymelech Stochaf Ma'Cheshvan. So it's known the questions or the points that the Rebbe make, beginning with the Alter Rebbe and moving on until the Rebbe Rashab, whose birthday was around those days. Chav Cheshvan Shevamisper Me'ah B'misper Esrim Nakat Shana. If you look at the pasuk, it says Me'ah Shana the Esrim Shana, so 100, and the word in English you would say it the same way, years. But in Lashon Kodesh you have Shana Lashon Yachid and Shanim Lashon Rabim in the plural tense. So you have, but when it comes to the numbers of 100 and the number of 20, it says Shana in the singular. Me'ah Shana ve'Esrim Shana Lashon Yachid v'Misper Sheva Nakat Shanim Sheva Shanim Lashon Rabim. He says it in the plural. So that's the first question. Why the change? If anything, is more is a larger number. So yeah, and based on the Zohar later, was the Zohar gehabt. So it's mamish mechoven auf the Zohar. About Kalpanim, and then another question. Why does the pasuk repeat itself and say at the end Shnei Chayei Sarah? Vayihyu Chayei Sarah. The pasuk already says these were the years of Sarah, and the years of Sarah were. And then he details 127 years. When he finishes detailing the number of the years, Shnei Chayei Sarah, these were the years of Sarah, the years of Sarah. So that's the second question. We also have to understand the lesson that we can learn from the lives, from the years of Sarah, in the Aved of every single Yid. Who says there's a lesson in it for the Aved of every single Yid? It says, all of the things that are in Torah, including the stories of the Torah, they are lessons to every single Yid. And this is even more so when it comes to Maaseh Avos v'Imois, the stories of the Avos and the Imois, Shem Simun and Sinas Koach Lebanim. Before that, I don't know if it was said v'Imois. The standard lashon Maaseh Avos Simun Lebanim. And we see a few references in the Haaretz of Al Kapanim. There it says v'Imois. Also, the stories of the Imois are a siman. So first of all, they're a guide. They tell us what to do. And not only do they tell us what to do, which that in itself, if they're telling us what to do, so obviously means that we could do it. Wouldn't tell us what to do if we couldn't do it. But even more than that, it's in the Sinas Koach. It gives us the power and the ability to do this Aveda that we're required to do. So what kind of Hira do we have from the years of the life of Sarah? Okay, 3 questions. Why Shana Lashon Yachid and then Shanim Lashon Rabim? Why does it repeat Shnei Chayei Sarah? And what's the Hira in Avedas Hashem? Okay. This pasuk includes the entire Seder Ishtalshlus, Lamaila, the Gam B'Nefesh Ha'adam, and also the way Seder Ishtalshlus is reflected in the nefesh and the soul of a person. B'kol echad v'echad miYisrael, shavedas etzricha liyis b'chol pratei ha'inyanim. That the Aveda of a Yid, of every single Yid, has to be in every single detail. Sai of Me'ah Shana, and also of Esrim Shana, and also of Sheva Shana, Kamei B'Sarah, just like Sarah did her Aveda, in all of the details, in every aspect and in every dimension. So to every single Yid, he can't be satisfied with doing one Aveda, 2 Avedas, even 100 Avedas. He has to do the Aveda in 127 details in every way. So the Aveda of Yid has to be complete. So what's this idea? That you can have the Aveda of a Yid, but it's only in one dimension. It's limited to only one sphere. Or you could have the Aveda of a Yid in all spheres, everywhere, and that's represented by Me'ah Shana, V'Esrim Shana, V'Sheva Shana. So what's this idea? And for that, we're going to have to get quite deep into the Maimon to understand that. So we're going to start like this. It's going to be a long section from the Zohar. I'll translate it to the best of my ability. But then the Rebbe is going to explain it more in the Isis of Chassidus, so we'll focus on that. So let's do the Zohar first. It says in the Zohar on this pasuk, Vayihyu Chayei Sarah. So he starts teaching the pasuk. Me'ah Shana, that's klala de kula, that's the general thing. That's everything together. This refers to a place in the Eibishter Kiviyachol that's hidden and concealed, and everything over there is in an Eifin of Achdus, the Iskalal, it's all one. Sima dechol simin, the hidden within hidden, b'meya and 100. So that's the idea of b'meya, and he says that b'razu d'meya b'chan b'chol yema. This Me'ah Shana, Vayihyu Chayei Sarah, Me'ah Shana, is connected to the Raz, to the Sod, to the secret, to the idea and concept of making 100 brachas every single day. Like we'll see soon in the Maimer, it's from Shulchan Aruch. V'chein Esrim Shana, and so too Esrim Shana is also in the same category as Me'ah Shana. In other words, a place of unity, a place of Achdus, something that's included within Kedusha and the Sasari law. Okay. And then begin kach, and with this the Zohar explains to us why it says Shana Lashon Yachid, Shana, because it's Raza the Yichuda de Laiskirish, Machshava v'Yuvla la'alma, because it's the secret, it's the idea of oneness, which wasn't separated, which didn't come out into a place of separation, and this is like the idea of Machshava v'Yuvla. I think in Chassidus would be called Chachma and Bina. And this didn't come out into the world. The Meichin remain in Elam, just like by a person, his Meichin remain included within himself. So that's why it says Shana, because it's still in a Eifin of Achdus. Then the Zohar continues with the pasuk Sheva Shanim. Now we have 7, and we speak in the plural. Ilain Ispirashon V'Nafkan Miklala. These things, these 7 years, they already left this place of Achdus. They already left the place where everything is included in Kedusha, within the Eibishter Kiviyachol. And they became 7 separate things. The Zayin Mitzvah, like we'll soon see in the Lashon of Chassidus. Bedina, but he says himself, Bedina v'rachme. You have these opposing attributes of din, of judgment, v'rachme, and of mercy. Bekama sitin v'orchin, in several ways, sides and ways, directions and ways. Or begin kach ksivu shanim v'lo shana. Since Shava is already something that's separate, that's not all the inning of Achdus, but each thing onto its own chesed over here, Gvura on the opposite extreme. So therefore, we already have many different things. So it's Shani. The Kulhu Ikrun Chayim, and they're all called Shnei Chayei Sarah. All of these details are all part of serving the Eibishter, and that's why they're all called Chayim. So let's see how the Rebbe teaches it in more in the Isis of Chassidus or in the Isis of Kabbalah Al Kapanim, not Zohar. V'in b'zeh Shemei Shana Koy Ala Keser, Me'ah Shana, which is the Klala de Kula, which is where everything is an Eifin of Achdus. So that's the Madrega of Keser. What does Me'ah have to do with Keser? Because Me'ah is one number, but this number is comprised of 10 times 10, 10 being the Sfiris. The way each one of the Sfiris also includes all the other Sfiris in it. Okay, so we have them in an Eifin of Achdus. It's a single number, but there are 100 different things in them, in this number. Which when it comes to the soul of a person. So that's the levels that are generally called the ratzon, the will of the person, and even deeper than that, the tainug, the pleasure of the person, which touches on the deepest place in the person. Okay, then you have the next level, the esrim shana koyal chachma bina. Then esrim shana, this is already lower levels in the person, the keches pnimiyim of chachma bina shekol echad mem kol miyud, as each one of them is comprised of 10. So that's why you end up with 20, which this is already bechinas hameichin. This is already meichin. And the brackets are going to be negeh provide, so we'll learn it. It's again, it's very technical. So over here we just finished teaching that Me'ah Shana is Keser, Esrim is Meichin. In several drushim it's muvor, actually Me'ah Shana that actually is Meichin. That the single numbers 1, 2, 3 before you get to the tens, those are in Malchus in the Sfiris. They exist in the Sfiris at the level of Malchus. Asiriyos bizarre, the tens, 10, 20, 30, etc. Those are in the Zohar. Those are in the 6 Sfiris that are above Malchus, the middas that are above Malchus. Umeis and the hundreds, ba'ava chachma bina, and ave'im and chachma bina, then va'alafim b'keser, and the thousands are in Keser. So according to this, it comes out that the Meis, the hundreds, the Meah Shana is actually a reference to the Meichin. So according to this, so how do we end up with having three different levels? So he says even according to this piece, we have three different levels, and we'll get back to it later in the Maimer. Meah Shana is Meichin Be'etzem, the way the Meichin have nothing to do with the Midas. The way the Meichin are all about Meichin, pure Meichin. The Esim Shana, and then the next level is the of Esim who Meichin Hashiyachim La Midas. Like we said just a minute ago, that Asiyah Bizarre, the tens have to do with Zah. So Esim Shana is already the Meichin which are Shaykh to Midas. So it's not pure Meichin, it's Meichin the way they already are in an external state, the way they already have to do with something below them with the Midas. And then, of course, Sheva Shanim remains, as in the first period, Sheva Shanim remains the Midas. Okay. Ubishneim Ne'amar Sai B'negea to Keser and Sai B'negea to the Moichin, Meah Shanim Esim Shanim, it says Lashon Yachid. Why? Ki B'Keser Meah Klulim Kol Sfiris Yachad. The reason why there's one number in Keser, why we just say 100, which is one number, even though it has in it many details, because over there all of the details stand together like one unit. They don't stand like each one separate, that it's its own Inyan. In Yom, to take apart, it's different things, but they're all together. What does it mean? It's not for this Maimer, it's for a different time. So we won't attempt an explanation in that. About Kapanim, yeah, let's leave it at that. About Kapanim, we have and then we have a Gam Chachma Bina, which is Asrim 20 Hem Teinrein Dlomis Parshim. So Chachma Bina, what? It's also, that's why it's also Shana, because even though we say over here Asrim, it's not the idea of Meah, where everything is Mamish B'chlol. So here we're getting down already into a prat. It's Asrim, it's 20, it's a certain section, but which is Chachma Bina, but they stand together. They don't stand separate. In other words, they're able to exist all together. They don't take up I'm Chachma over here, I'm Bin over here. They're trained Lamis Parshim, which this expresses that they're in of Achdus, that they didn't yet go into a place of Pirud, into a place of separation. And therefore they're included together, and that's why it's Shana. But then you have a Sheva Shanim Kayal Sheva Midas. Sheva Shanim is already the 7 Midas. Since the Midas express themselves in a Eifin of complete differences, Ad lekavin afachim, until complete opposites. The Chesed u'Gvura Dina v'Rachmi. Chesed and Gvur are two complete opposites. So never them Sheva Shanim Lashon Rabim. So therefore it says over there Lashon Rabim. U'Moisif u'Mesayim, and I'm not sure over here when the Rebbe says U'Moisif u'Mesayim if he's referring to the Zohar or if he's referring to the pasuk. For sure, the pasuk is Moisif u'Mesayim, but I'm not sure if it might also be because he.
That was the third. That was the last question in the first.
Yeah.
Why are we saying Shnei Chayei Sarah again? If he said it by Vayihyu Chayei Sarah.
Yeah, but this might be a reference to the last three words of Kul Nikrum Chaim. Either way, whichever way it is, Umeisif U'Mesayim, the pasuk certainly adds and finishes Shnei Chayei Sarah, the years of Sarah. What does this mean? When a person first does the Aveda of 100 years, and then he does that, he does his Aveda in Keser, whatever the Seder is, which one comes first. But he does his Aveda, Sayin Keser, Sayin the Medegas of Ratzin and Tainu, Sayin the Medegas of Moichin, Sayin the Vesim Shan and Moichin. He also doesn't forget about his Midas. He does his Aveda also completely, V'Sheva Shanim at the level of Midas. So through this, Baim Ladarga Nailis Yeser, then the person achieves a higher level, and this is already higher than any Ischalkus. This is even higher than the Achdus of 100. Over here, there already isn't any number. What can you count before 1? In other words, that even when you reach 1, which is, it's just 1 unit, so it's not like you have many things. But still, it's a number that you can count. You could say it's 1. But then you have this idea that's beyond the concept of numbers, of many things. It's a achdus on a higher level. Okay, so then Shnei Chayei Sarah is a higher level. So until now, what do we have? We have that the reason why the pasuk repeats Shnei Chayei Sarah is because we're dealing with four different levels. First level, Meah Shana is Keser, Ratzin and Tainug. Esim Shana is Meichin, Chachma and Bina. Sheva Shanim is Midas. And Shnei Chayei Sarah is a different level. It's not a repetition. This is a level that's of what's the lesson that he uses? Just calls him Regen Naili Siesa Shalamayla Meis Chalkos. Ich weiß nicht. Where does it say Ati? In 12, Sefer, no, 12 is just a Sefer Yitzira. Unless you have a different 12.
No, Ufrat is Yesa. לפני אחד, לפני Mata Sefer, who לפני aleph Mata Sefer, it's Ati.
Where do you see? Oh, the next paragraph. Yeah. Okay, let me see it. I did not see it. Let me see it. So let's read. We're reading now number 12. Let's see. Before one, so this fourth level that we're talking about, that's Atik. When Atik, which is Pnimius HaKeser, is drawn down and it shines in Arich, which is Chitzonius HaKeser, so then we call it Meyashana. However, when Atik is in its place, before it was Nimshach into Arich, so over there, not only no numbers, it's Lamaila from even the concept of numbers. Even the concept of numbers doesn't apply to it. That's why it says Shnei Chayei Sarah without saying any number. Okay, very good. Okay. So now they was going to ask like this. According to the way we just explained things, Shnei Chayei Sarah, the word Shnei Chayei Sarah, who in b'fnei atzma. It's a fourth level, which is higher than, like we just said, than the levels of Meya Shana, Ve'esim Shana, Ve'sheva Shana. However, if you read Pshutei Mikra, and this is the Rebbe's specialty, insisting on connecting the deepest explanations in Torah with the simplest understanding of Torah. If you touch the pasuk to Ben Chamish Lemikra, these 127 were Shnei Chayei Sarah. So you're talking about the same thing. You're not talking about a new level or a higher level. And as is emphasized in the Pirush of Rashi, which Rashi wrote this Pirush al Pipshut Shel Mikra, but it's also in accord with Pnimius HaTorah. And Rashi writes, Shnei Chayei Sarah kulam shamin l'teva. That Shnei Chayei Sarah is a reference to those earlier years. It's talking about the 127. It's not talking about a new thing, that they were all equally good. And it's not talking about a level that's higher. How does Rashi teach? Because it's a problem in Pshutei Shel Mikra. Why this repetition? So Rashi says it's coming to say that these 127 years were all the same. They were all equally good, and that's why we don't get into details. We just say Shnei Chayei Sarah. It was one long continuation of goodness. That's Rashi's taich. So it's one thing. It's not a fourth thing. It's describing the three levels that we were talking about previously. Rashi explains that the Me'ah Shana, V'esim Shana, V'sheva Shanim. Not sure what's bothering Rashi there, but whatever is bothering Rashi, he explains that when she was 100, she was as good as somebody who's 20, and when she was 20, she was as good as somebody who's 7 in different ways.
Rashi is wrong. Why do you say Me'ah Shana?
And it makes
because a Me'ah V'esim V'sheva Shanim.
Yeah.
Why did you have to say each one?
So he's saying he's coming to make a point with it.
Right.
Baskufka, Baschofka, Bazayin. Shemazeh mashma, that was so, but according to Pirush Rashi, it's mashma that what's the best? Bazayin, right? Even though she was 100, she was like she was 20. She was as good as 20. And even though she was 20, she was as good as 7. So 7 is the highest. There's a certain advantage in 7 years compared to Lagabe 20 years. And there's an advantage in 20 years, Lagabe 100 years. Even though we just finished explaining Shekeser So again, the Rebbe wants to make the Pnimius Einyanim match the Pashtus Einyan. Okay, so the Rebbe started by explaining that the story of Me'ah Shana, V'esim Shana, V'sheva Shana is doing the Aveda in all Madregas. A Yid can't do his Aveda only in one area, and davening and learning and meichin and midas. He has to do his avodah. He has to serve Hashem in all areas completely. And then he starts getting into the details of it, and he says that l'chura there's a maila in the avodah of meichin. L'chura there's a maila in the lower levels than there is in the higher levels. But how does that make sense? How are you going to say there's a maila in the midas lagabe the meichin and lagabe the keser? Why, when you go lower, do you suddenly have an advantage to the way things are when they're higher? Yeah. What's what's higher?
Cleaner,
What
maybe? What's cleaner?
when you go lower is cleaner?
When you went 5 years old, when you said it's
That's in the Pirush HaPashat.
Yeah.
So in the Pirush HaPashat we understand
So
what's
it
by
can be
blichet.
Not go through life yet. It's
Yeah.
cleanest in a way.
You're saying what this is what Rashi says. What you're saying is what Rashi says. So takaze. So but how does that fit with what we explained before in Pnimiyus Yanim, that lower is midis, and midis, the emotions are lower than the intellect, and the intellect is lower than the pnimius of the person, which is his ratzon, his will, and his tainug, his essence, his pleasure. Those are higher. So how is it? Why is it that when you go lower, that was going to say this is the point of the whole maimer. The lower you go, the higher you are. But we have to wait till we get to it. Okay. So before, this is the last os that we're going to get to before the Rebbe actually starts getting into the inyan of the maimer. And now the Rebbe is going to start talking about this Meya Brachas. So this is going to be, this Dalet is going to be an introduction to the idea of Meya Brachas. And hey, we're finally going to get to Meya Brachas. That's what it's explained in several mamar. The continuation of the Zayir after saying Meya Shana Klala Dekula, what does the Zayir say? Shemeya Shana Hu Raza de Meya Bechan V'chol Yoyma. Meya Shana, 100 years, is a reference to the idea of Meya Brachas. What's the idea of 100 brachas? So it's Pashat Shechayev Adam Levarich Meya Brachas B'chol Yom. Every single Yid has an obligation to make 100 brachas every single day. And Shulchan Aruch goes through it, how you reach 100 brachas, he counts them, and most of them are made up of the 3 Shemini Esrei, which during the week we have 19 brachas, but on Shabbos we have less brachas. On Yom Tiv, never mind Yom Kippur, we mamash run into trouble trying to get to 100 brachas, because on Rosh Hashanah at least we have 3 brachas. On Yom Tiv, even though we only have, in other words, we have 3 brachas and tzayis. Besides for the Shalosh Hashems and the Shalosh Achreinos, we have 3 brachas and tzayis. On Yom Tiv, we have 1 bracha and tzayis, but at least we make brachas on food. On Yom Kippur is bechlal a problem. How are you going to get? Because it's only 1 bracha and tzayis, and you don't make brachas on food. Al kol panim, Shulchan Aruch goes through it, Pashat, and the Yid has to make sure that he makes 100 brachas every single day. Not sure what the answer for Yom Kippur is. Al kol panim, unakudas habiur, shemeya shana hu gam haklal the esim shana v'sheva shanim. I'm sorry, Kishlamdu Chazal mea pasuk v'ate Yisrael ma'av elekecha she'elim. Chazal learned from the pasuk that now Moshe Rabbeinu is telling the Yidden that even though you did all of these things, but nevertheless the Eibishter forgives you, and the Eibishter only has one thing, asks one thing of you. And he says ma. So Chazal darshan on the word ma, al tikrei ma elu meya. Don't read the word as ma, but read the word as meya. That what does the Eibishter demand from you? He demands from you ma, that you should make 100 brachas every single day. Okay. So to understand that, first we're going to introduce one more concept. Unakudas habir, shemeya shana hu gam haklal the esim shana v'sheva shana. And this is the point that Deb is going to make until the end of the ice. That meya shana actually is also the klal. It's also the how you would say it in English, but it's also the all-inclusive. Not all-inclusive. I'll try to explain it without saying it. What did we understand until now? You have 3 separate things. You have Meya Shana is one thing. You have Esim Shana is another thing. Then you have Sheva Shana is another thing. So he's going to say, no, Meya Shana is actually what Esim Shana and what Sheva Shana is permeated with, is full with. In other words, Meya Shana includes in it and extends into the Esim Shana, and it includes within it and extends into the Sheva Shana. So it's not only a separate thing. It's a separate thing, but it also is part of the Esim Shana and the Sheva Shana.
So 10 times 10, it includes everything.
No, 10 times 10 includes everything is before it came out into a Eifin of Esim Shana and Sheva Shana. In other words, the way the midas stand over there, the way the midas stand in Kes is a completely different Eifin. What he's saying is, no, even the way the midas stand as midas, the way they already came out fully developed and fully as actual midas, even there, Meya Shana is their clown. So that's the name that he's saying over here. So we'll read it inside now. The neisif lezes shekol mea dagas eses fish kolachem em klula me'eses shebekeser him klal echad shlom ale meis chalkus. In addition to the fact that you have Meya Shana, we're just turning the page. In addition to the fact that you have Meya Shana, which this includes in it all of the 10 spheres, and each one of them with all of their details. So then, who gam haklal the kol gimel hachalukas, it's also it's also a part of the three separate levels. Gam the esim shana v'sheva shana. The meya shana is also a part of the esim shana, the way esim shana came as actual seichel, and it's also part of the sheva shana, the way they came as actual midas. As it's explained in the Dushim, the Meya Shana is also drawn into, and encloses itself in the Esim Shana and in the Sheva Shanim, in the Meichin and in the Midas. Okay. Yeah, but it's not so pashut. Usually you say that in order to have the other Midas, you have to stop Keser. From Keser comes a davar shechutz mimenu, comes something outside of it. If you're going to still be in Keser, then a mashal, if it's not the best mashal, but everything that a person has, everything that a person can do comes within him. The fact that a person can walk, okay, comes from within him. The person has the koach ha'alicha. If the person didn't have the koach ha'alicha, then how is it possible for him to walk? So obviously a person includes within him the koach ha'alicha. Now, are you going to say that within every person there's a hidden, secret walking person? Yeah, not. The koach ha'alicha, the way it's within the person, doesn't express itself in actual walking. It's an even of a koach, of a yechelis even, that the person can walk. Okay? Now, from the koach ha'alicha comes afterwards actual walking. When you have actual walking, okay, so you have a person could be walking to the right, or a person could be walking to the left, right? He can't be walking to the right and to the left at the same time. When he's walking to the right, you can't say he's walking to the left. It's two separate things and even opposite things, okay? The koach ha'alicha within the person, it's all one thing over there. The ability to walk to the right and the ability to walk to the left, it's all just part of one simple koach ha'alicha that didn't yet come down into an actual halicha, and therefore isn't yet separated into these separate things of walking to the right versus walking to the left. It's one achtastik, a koach ha'alicha that includes in it all of the halichas, the halicha to the right, to the left, l'mayla, l'mata, whatever halicha you want, is an ha'ifin of this one simple potential that he has within him and the ability to walk. Okay? So, in as much as the koach ha'alicha looks nothing like the actual halicha, the meichin, the way it is in Keser, looks nothing like the meichin that we're familiar with. It's b'chlal not the same thing. And it stands in an even of achdus where you can't differentiate, you can't pull apart. Here's meichin, here's midas, here's other things in Keser. Just like in the koach ha'alicha in the person, you can't pull apart where's the koach to walk to the right and where's the koach to walk to the left. You can't pull it apart because they weren't yet expressed as separate things. It stands over there all as one thing. So, say that you don't have the chilukim of right and left in the koach ha'alicha in the person, and because of that, everything over there is an eifin of achdus. What comes later as separate things and even as opposite things, when it's within the person, it's one thing. When it's within the person, it's one thing. So in Keser, it's a whole other world. When it comes into an actual halicha, it's a whole other thing. So when it comes into actual meichin, it's in ganzen and andere ma'aser. Okay, fine. Now, before you'll recall, we had two explanations of Meya Shana v'Sheva Shana v'Esim Shana v'Sheva Shana. One pirush was that Meya is Keser, and Esrim is Meichin, and Sheva is Midas. So according to that, it's very glad to say that the Meya Shana is the klal and is part of, or is nimshach into the Esrim and the Sheva. Right, because it's Keser is a makif, like he's going to explain, he's going to mention in a second. It's a koach seviv, it encompasses everything. In other words, it doesn't go down into the differences of individual things, and therefore it can go into everywhere. Something that's simple, something that doesn't have a form yet, can go everywhere. Something that has a specific form can't go anywhere. Keser is a makif. Since it's a makif, it doesn't have a specific tzir of a particular koach, and therefore it can go sayin to meichin and sayin to midas. So that's very glatik. But we explained also in the brackets before that Meya Shana is also meichin. If Meya Shana, right, he said it's etzem ha-meichin, that's the Meya, and then the meichin, hashechem midas is etzem. But he said that Meya Shana is meichin. Meichin is already a koach pnimi. Intellect is not emotion. Seichel is not midas. Seichel is cold. Seichel is disinterested, is objective. Midas is passionate and is very subjective. It wants exactly what it wants, and it doesn't care for the truth of that the Meichin has to have to explain. So it's a different seer completely. So, but the Rebbe says that even according to the second piece, that Meya Shana is Meichin, you could still say that the Meya is the cloud. It permeates and it's enclosed within the Esrim and the Sheva. That's the point that the Rebbe is going to make now. The Yeshlema. It's not only according to the explanation that Mei is Keser, which over there it's readily understood. The Kivin Shekeser Hu Makiv, Harehu HaKlal, the Kol Eser Sfiris. And that's easy, that's not a problem technically. Elagam Lahabir Shemehu Etzem HaMeichin. But rather, even according to the explanation that Mei is a reference to Meichin, the Av Shemeichin Him Keches Pnimim. Even though Meichin are Keches Pnimim, and therefore on Keches Pnimim you can't say, for example, you can't say that the Kecher also hears. The Keich Hariyah is a Keich Hariyah. In the Nefesh Adam, so you say that the Nefesh finds itself in every single part of the person. In which part of the person is his soul present? The answer is in his entire body, and that's why his entire body is alive. His soul finds itself from his head to his toenails. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a living thing. It would be like meat in a pot, like the Tzemach Tzedek says. So the soul is everywhere. Why? Because that madrega of the soul is like the... for purposes of this matter, we'll say it's like the keser. It's a makif. It can go everywhere. But then you have keches pnimim of the nefesh. The keich to see. The keich to see can't hear. It has a very specific definition. It has a very specific tzir, what it looks like, what it does. And that's to see. And to see and to hear is two separate things. So therefore, with the keich of riyah, you can't hear. You need a separate keich of shmiyah to be able to hear. So l'chure meichin is al derech keich pnimi is a keich pnimi, and it's al derech, let's say, seeing. So how could you say that a keich pnimi is the klal of everything? So it says like this: Etzem hameichin ugam haklal da'adaga shelamata mimenu. Etzem hameichin is also the klal of the madegas, which is lower than etzem hameichin. Shalachein etzem hameichin nimshach mislav she'achkach b'meichin hashechem alamidus, and it's for this reason, since the etzem hameichin is also the general picture of everything that comes after it. That's why it's actually nimshach into midus shenachlakim bechlalis lebeis kavim, which meichin hashechem alamidus are in general separated into two kavim, esim shana, which correspond to chiyuv and shlil, what something is and what something is not. In other words, the upper bound and the lower bound of what a concept is. Aseh v'lo yisaseh. And it actually could be nimshach all the way into the midas sheva shanim shebehem ikar aveda, which in the midas is where the ikar aveda of the person exists. The beer in it I don't understand, but as a statement I understand it. David says that actually etzem hameichin is the klal of everything that comes out, that comes below it. He said it's keches pnimium, so he says it's not a problem. Why is it not a problem? But that Pirush goes also according to that. We'll leave it at that. Okay, good. Weiter mit Hey, so we should finish here. Hey already starts a whole other gang in the Maimer. You made it through the very difficult and abstract technical part, Kabbalistic part. We made it through that part. One more else. Okay. But just to summarize the ideas that we have, we're gonna leave Me'ah Shana V'Esem Shana V'Shev Shanim on the side. Okay, but we'll just remember that we said that Me'ah Shana V'Esem Shana V'Shev Shanim requires that the person serve the Eibishter in every detail and every dimension of his existence and of the world. He serves the Eibishter in everything. That's the requirement. Kum Shavim L'Teva, Kum Ikru Chaim. They're all part of serving the Eibishter. That's the idea. And then he introduces the idea of Me'ah Brachis. And Me'ah Brachis is very related to this idea that you're serving the Eibishter in every detail, in every area. So now we're going to start explaining things. To explain what Me'ah Shana, 100 years, which is the Aveda of Keser, but not only of Keser, also of Meichin and also of Midas, like he just explained it down. In other words, the Aveda of everything. What does that have to do with 100 brachas? Right? Well, what's the Havana of it? What is making 100 brachas throughout the day have to do with serving the Eibishter in every area of life, in every area of the person? So it says, Yuvan al piyam v'vur b'kama drusim shinin habrachas u'kolos ha'aveda. Brachas represent and they symbolize the entire Aveda of a person. How is that? Like the Alter Rebbe famously teaches that bracha is Melashon Hamavrich, right? Hamavrich Elon. If somebody, what's the word? Hamavrich Hesagef, and what's the word for it? That's right, graft, right? So you take a tree from one place and you pull it into the ground or into something else where it can grow from, and now it starts growing again. So Hamavrich is the meaning of Hamshachas. Now, Rebbe says that a brach is a lashon Hamshacha. And so let's now touch the Pirush Amilis and Primis and the Pirush to Baruch Ata Havaya. So Baruch Hu Lahamshich Shem Havaya Shia Baruch V'Nimshach Begila Lamata. The Aveda starts like this. What's our objective? What's our goal? What do we have to do? We have to be Baruch. We have to be Mamshich Ata, the etzem of the Eibishter that's even higher than the name, and Havaya, the way the Eibishter is called Havaya, which is on a very high level before it has a shaykhs to the worlds. We have to be Mamshich that it should come down Begila Lamata. We have to reveal Ata and Havaya that it should be Begili in this world. And how do we do that? This is a klal gadol and Aveda that's in Chassidus everywhere. Everything starts with the Aveda of the person. Taking over the world starts with the person first making himself over. And when he makes himself over, he also makes over Chelka Beilim. So it all starts first with the Nefesh Adam. First, take care of yourself. First, work on yourself. We're not saying to not go on time until you finished working on yourself. Yeah, it's kiyadua, but that's a subject for a different thing, for a different place. But in the Seder of how you accomplish things, so first you have to bring everything within you. In other words, reveal Getlichkeit, reveal the Eibishter within you. Dedicate yourself to the Eibishter, and then through that you'll be able to reveal the Eibishter in the world. So Havaya Elokeinu, we say Havaya Elokeinu li'isgilu and sof ben nefesh kol Yisrael. The first step is to make from Baruch Ata Havaya that it should become Elokeinu, to reveal that our Eibishter is the type of Elokeinu, our master, so that the Eibishter should be revealed, the Ein Sof of Havaya and of Ata should be revealed in the nefesh, in the soul of Kol Yisrael, of every single Yid. That the Eibishter is, that the Emun and the Eibishter should be strengthened and made obvious. The Gilui, and that the Eibishter is our Koach and our Chayis, that it's not pshat that our Koach and Chayis is something separate, that our abilities, our life, our existence is something separate of us. The Eibishter is powered by the Eibishter. No, the Eibishter is our Koach and our Chayis. That's one thing, you can't take them apart. So then we have the continuation of the bracha. Then we could already reveal this in the world, and that's why the end of the beginning of the bracha is Melech HaElam. Now the Eibishter becomes the king of the world. Right. So to summarize, Baruch Ata Hashem, we're being Megala Ata Hashem into the whole world. How do we do it? We start by Elokeinu, by revealing the Eibishter within ourselves, and through this we bring it out to the whole world. Melech HaElam, we make the Eibishter king over the entire world. Yes. So this is a beer that's in Chassidus Bichlal. And that's a beer based on the Pirush Hamilis. But Deb also adds a much more conceptual explanation of why the brachas have to do with being mamshich, the Eibishter into the world. If you think about the content of brachas, you'll see that it's all about revealing the Eibishter in the world. In addition to the fact that most of the brachas are connected with matters of this world. So even when you make a bracha on a mitzvah, still it has to do with the physical things with which you do the mitzvahs. The mitzvah of tzitzis you have to do with physical wool. With tefillin beklaf gashmi, tefillin you do with physical parchment. But in addition to that, what are you benching the Eibishter for? You're benching the Eibishter for physical things in this world. Like, for example, the brachas, what we call brachas in the morning brachas, that the chachamim were masakin, that a person should make the brachas on everything that happens as he's waking up and as he's beginning his day, right? Like the Shulchan explains, you start with the Halesin Latzech Vivina, which is the first thing that a person experiences. The rooster wakes him up, you bench the Eibishter for that. He woke up, he opens his eyes, so the next bracha you make is Pekerech Ivim. And then you stand up or you sit up, so then you make the bracha, Matir Asurim, you unbound me. Before I was in the laying position, now you unbound me, I was able to sit up. And then the next step, very next thing that the person does is Zekef Kfufim. He stands up, so you make the bracha Zekef Kfufim, now you stand upright. Then the next thing a person does is Maldi Sharumim, he gets dressed. etc. And so it goes. So the brachas that we say in the morning are pashut for the physical things that the Eibishter gave us in this world, and even more than that. Or val derech zeh habrachas al bakashas tzrachav hagashmim reifei chelim u'mevarech hashanim. The brachas when a person asks for his needs, that he asks for physical health, u'mevarech hashanim, he asks for physical parnas v'chayetzer b'zeh. Valachas kama v'kama, and even more so when we talk about birchas hanenin, right? Because the brachas in general are divided into three categories: birchas hamitzvos, birchas hanenin. Birchas hamitzvos, bakashas tzrachim, and birchas hanenin. Valachas kama v'kama birchas hanenin. When a person makes a bracha on a physical thing that he derives pleasure from, that you bench before eating or drinking. I was going to say we are a very precious beer, very, very precious beer. That through the bracha, the thing becomes permissible to eat and to drink. Let's take a Gemara and see how we understand the Gemara without the Rebbe's explanation. Then you'll see how beautiful the Rebbe explains it. Whoever takes part and enjoys something in this world without making a bracha, it's as if he was moil behektish. It's as if he took something from the Eibishter and stole it and used it for his own purposes. Like it says, the world and everything within it belongs to the Eibishter. So if a person takes something as simple as a cup of water and drinks it, it's like he was moil and hektish. That's what it says in Gemara.
I still have to make I wash my hands. I can't. I'm drinking without making bracha.
It's a problem.
Just a second here. I have to say the Kavanazon.
Yeah.
As soon as the fear is over.
Okay, don't worry about it.
It reminded me that I don't
Shkis,
say now.
yeah. Shkis mi oven. It says they fixes up the things that we forget. This is talking about somebody who does it purposely. Everything belongs to the Eibishter. What happens after he makes a bracha? La'achar bracha. After he makes a bracha, harei libnei adam. Now it already belongs to the person. That's what the Gemara says. But the Rebbe implies that. Think for a second. What did we just say over here? Was is the uftu von a bracha? What do we accomplish with the bracha? That before it belonged to the Eibishter, now it doesn't belong to the Eibishter. Was is the der Kunst? So since it doesn't belong to the Eibishter, I'm allowed to eat it. But since before we said that before you make the bracha, it belongs to the Eibishter. If you eat it, you're stealing from the Eibishter. So what's the trick? You can understand. Make a bracha now, it doesn't belong to the Eibishter. Now it's libnei adam. Now it doesn't. What's the kunst? We took something out of the reshus of the Eibishter with his permission, but we took something out of the reshus of the Eibishter. What's so good about that? So Rebbe says that's not the story. That's bichlal not the story. It says Hainu. Shavulas habracha. What is the bracha accomplished? We're not being mevatel the kedusha, the idea that it belongs to the Eibishter. But rather the katshe shemayim, the Eibishter's holy things become his. It remains katshe shemayim. Shachilasei, his own eating, ushiyasei, his own drinking. Now he's serving the Eibishter. Now he's doing a davar kaddish, he's doing a holy thing. Why? I'm eating for my own benefit. So he says, no, it's a whole other eating. When you made a bracha, and now you refined it and you purified these physical things, and now what happened is what you did is you took something that belonged to kedusha, but you can't see any kedusha in it. You made a bracha on it. By making a bracha on it, now you were mamshech kedusha. The water, so to speak, gained a kedusha, gained a holiness, and that's the idea of a bracha. That you shouldn't be eating like your own personal matter. That it's for you. When you make a bracha, you're eating for the Eibishter. Your eating is now part of serving the Eibishter. So the katshe shemayim has your megala the kedusha that's in it by being mevarim mezachich. So it has in it both aspects. On the one hand, it's the Eibishter's because it's kedusha, but on the other hand, it's yours because you were mevarim the nitzaitis. You used it to serve the Eibishter. You made a bracha on it. So now it has in it both aspects. It's kedusha, but it's also yours. You have a chelik in it because you brought holiness into it, or you revealed the holiness that's in it. Okay, so with this we see how Mea Brachas is the Klolos Aveda, because if the Klolos Aveda is to be Megala Likus in the world, what happens when you make a bracha on a davar gashmi? You're Megala Likus, and where you Megala Likus? Not only in the Beis Medrash, not only in the Sefer Torah, not only in davening, but you're Megala Likus in a piece of cake. You're Megala Likus in the challah. So you brought the Likus all the way down into the most gashmistic place possible. And that's the close Aveda, to reveal the Eibishter in this physical world. And this is why the Zohar puts them both together. He says, Mei Shana is klala de kula, is the klal that's part of everything, and that's the idea of 100 brachas. The idea of Mei brachas is the general aveda of a person, of drawing down a likus down here into this world. And that's the whole point of the klala de kula of the entire aveda. Through doing like we said in Dalit, that we take the Meah and we draw it down and we enclose it in the Meichin Hashayachim Alamidus Esim Shana, the Ad Lebchinas Amidus, and we draw it down even further into the Midus, into the Sheva Shanim Shivas Yemei Abinyan, Shal Yadam Nivra Ha'elam, which through them the world was created, Ubehem Bibchinas Amidus, He Ikar Aveda Bizman Hazen, and the Midus is where the primary game of doing the Aveda, it's not a game, but of serving the Eibush that exists, is in the Midus. So we said in the beginning of the Maimer that the idea of Me'ah Shanim, V'esem Shanim, V'sheva Shanim is to serve the Eibishter in everything. He started explaining that serving the Eibishter in everything means not only in Ratzon and Tainug and Keser, but also in Meichin and in Midas. And over here he's explaining that actually what this represents is not only Meichin and Midas, also in Dvarim Gashmi. You make a brach on a Davar Gashmi, you're serving the Eibishter also with the physical part of the world, not only with the spiritual parts of existence. Okay, Ad Kan. Mir Hashem next Woche.
So,